What did you say?
Peace be with you.
Say it right.
And also with you.
No. The force be with
The
you.
force be with you.
It's Sunday. I'm trying to be churchy.
That is...
But
It's like you didn't watch the movies. Placed all of my blood with caffeine. It was an expensive process.
Oh, I didn't really want a beer, but I'll drink it.
BFF forever lols.
And now for two guys who think they have something to say to the world, here's Natty Ice and Wise Kai. Hello friends and welcome back to the show. The first rule of North by Nowhere is always talk about North by Nowhere. The second rule of North by Nowhere is always talk about North by Nowhere.
That seems a little redundant to me.
Your face.
Oh, okay.
How we doing today?
We're good.
Good?
Yeah.
Feeling
good.
Feeling great, actually.
Had a little bit of caffeine.
I've had a lot of caffeine. I've had 3 large caffeine drinks today.
By this time next week, I'm going to be married.
That's right. Well, this episode's going to come out on Wednesday, so.
Well, and
So technically, you're still correct.
technically, yeah, I'm right.
You're right.
I'll be
You're
married.
correct. I'll concede to that one.
Okay, all right.
Went to the bookstore today and bought a couple comic books. I bought a Hulk comic book that I'm very excited
Fun.
to read.
I got a new Loot Crate the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe I shouldn't say that because they don't sponsor us.
They don't. You got a package the other day?
Yeah, I got a new package that had some cool stuff in it.
Yeah,
That was
what-
black and
what
you
was in
open
it?
it. Well, this awesome shirt that I'm wearing.
That-
That's half
is
Green
it-
Ranger and half White Ranger.
Is everybody seeing this?
God, I hope so. I'll take a picture, and maybe post it somewhere, but I probably will.
You could. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll post it to Facebook.
Yeah,
It
it's
is-
a pretty sweet,
It is pretty good.
sweet shirt.
What else did you?
There was a Rick and Morty puzzle.
Yeah.
I've never watched Rick and Morty, but
You really
yeah,
should.
Wise Guy says it's pretty funny.
You should give it a go. It's on
Adult Swim.
Adult Swim. Yeah, they finished season 1 and they're working on season 2.
I wonder if it's on Amazon Instant Video.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
I should check on there.
Think Back to the Future, but an adult version.
Oh, okay.
It's where the crazy scientist is actually drunk pretty much all the time.
It's wonderful.
And and it's pretty good.
So is it kind of like home movies in the fact that the adult character is just hammered the whole time?
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he comes through occasionally.
Yep.
Yeah,
Every once in a while.
It's pretty good.
We're talking about Hugh McGurk.
And there's this one episode that I think needs special mention where they're watching TV. He actually, the crazy scientist, gets a cable box where it gets all channels from all dimensions.
Oh boy.
And so they're flipping through the channels, and what they did was the animators and writers just ad-libbed. And then they animated what they ad-libbed to.
That's awesome.
It was pretty good.
I bet that turned out pretty trippy.
Yep. It was pretty good. But yeah, other than that, I mean, the weather finally cleared up.
Finally.
For a day.
At least it's not raining. Can't rain all the time.
Yeah, it was supposed to rain today. I wonder what happened to that.
It's
Weathermen.
Rain tomorrow, I think.
Hmm.
Rain today.
Have you
Rained yesterday.
have you heard that song by Dead Sarah?
Well,
Weatherman?
Yes.
That's a good one.
She's a rocker.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
Yeah.
what do we got on the show today?
Can you tell we're caffeinated?
We're very excited to be here
Mm-hmm.
in lovely Fargo.
I think today we were going to talk about nostalgic games.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to talk about our top 5 games that gave us nostalgia.
And I think this is something we're going to keep like as a running thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe once every few shows,
Yeah.
we'll revisit it. Maybe not a full 5 list, but at least 1 or 2.
Couple. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do a full 5.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't.
I mean, if you didn't know, I'm kind of a big gamer.
Yeah. And I'm kind of a not ish
So
gamer.
I had to cut this and weed this, and I knew we were going to go on with this a little bit, so I didn't put I guess the top.
Oh, okay.
But there is one that's on there. That's my number 1.
I bet I know what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, I could go on. I had to cut so many games from this, but anyway.
You can go ahead and start if you'd like.
All right. So number 5 is a game called Comic Zone. Now this was released for the Sega Genesis.
I think I remember playing that game.
Do you?
At some point,
Yeah.
yes.
Released in August of 1995. It was released for the Sega Genesis and maybe one of the other Sega systems. They had 4 of them.
Yeah.
And none of them did really well except for the Genesis. in my opinion, I guess. It was released in August 1995. I couldn't get a specific date on that for some reason.
Was that the one where when you're running through the level, you're running through the comic squares?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, I did play that one.
Yeah, it was developed by Sega Technical Institute. It's one of their offshoots here in the United States. They were responsible for Kid Chameleon, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and Sonic Spinball, which is why I asked you if you played those games. All those games are fantastic, especially Kid Chameleon. That was fun. Special note, the programmer, Adrian Stevens, also worked on Sonic and Knuckles, primarily on the physics for Knuckles. But
that one might be on my list.
He's uncredited.
What a jerk.
Yeah. They didn't, I don't know. Back then, it wasn't really a prestigious thing to work on a game. It was mostly like, we're going to program this and hopefully people buy it. They did. Yep. I did.
Well, we had this thing back when I lived in Mandan that it was called the Sega Channel.
The Sega Channel? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, yeah, but we had it.
It was like that thing in the hotels, wasn't it?
Kind of.
Yeah.
But our cable company actually gave it to us. Well, didn't give it to us, but they offered it. There's just this big adapter that you stuck into your Sega and plugged your cable into it. And when it turned on, it went to the Sega Channel thing. But it was like this huge arcade of games that you could just play.
Just right from the cable thing.
Yeah. So it was kind of like online gaming before online gaming. Yeah. You know, like a Steam type of deal.
It's really cool how they did that.
Very.
I was so proud when I first learned how to hook up a Nintendo.
Me too.
You said put the cable in. That reminded me of the little box they had.
Yeah. The only reason I bring that up is because I'm pretty positive that's where I played Comic Zone.
Oh, really? Yeah. But anyway, it's a beat 'em up style game with what was back then a unique twist. The game features Sketch Turner, a comic artist working on his new project, Comic Zone, when a lightning bolt hits his work area, making the main villain of his comic named Mortis come to life. Kind of a, stereotypical trope. Mm-hmm. He instantly seizes the opportunity to throw Sketch into the comic, and from there you're playing the game. What makes this game lovable and unique is the style it had. Instead of boring transitions from screen to screen, like you were saying, Sketch literally hops between comic panels, and each panel is filled with cool enemies and even cooler artwork. But that's not all the comic book flair this game had to offer. It really makes players feel more immersed when you can see pieces of the page being torn by your rat companion Roadkill, where he finds power-ups and stuff for you. It reveals secret items, power-ups, all that stuff. And often you see the hand of Mortis himself drawing in enemies for, to kill Sketch. Why he didn't just do it in real life is, Deus Ex Machina. But the game had 2 endings back then, which is not something that was popularized.
Yeah.
Multiple ending game, and especially...
That's not even really these days.
I know. Especially in a cartridge-based game, because that means that the player has to go through and beat the game, and then go through again and beat it once more to get the different ending. The game has had cult success, but at the time of its release, the PlayStation 1 was already out.
I mean, that had to have been just a killer for the Genesis.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
Well, the Super Nintendo was a killer enough. Mm-hmm. Because while the Genesis had I think, I'm not too sure, I think the Genesis had a better processor, Super Nintendo had a better sound chip, and the Super Nintendo might have had a bigger color palette. I don't remember.
Was Super Nintendo 16-bit?
They both were.
No, I had a 32-bit Genesis.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was that the CD drive?
No. So Genesis is how they worked. At least I think that's what it was. I'm pretty positive it was 32-bit.
I remember it was called like the 32X or something like that.
Yeah. And that's what I had. It was the one with the smaller cartridges.
Oh.
Because the 16-bit had the bigger cartridges.
That's the one I had.
The little yellow tab on it.
Right.
Yeah. That was the 16-bit one. Huh. And then there was the 32-bit one.
Yeah. I was just a dumb kid.
Well, of course. Yeah. I mean, we got it.
I remember when I got the Genesis.
Me too. We got it for Christmas.
My parents gave me the controller for the Genesis and not the console.
I mean, that's not nice.
And it was hidden and stuff, but I was such I don't know, I didn't have a sense of humor or sarcasm, which is weird for me.
Yeah.
Back then. So I was like, oh, cool, a controller. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Just being polite and stuff like that. And they expected a big reaction. I guess
polite, that's also not very good for you.
I know, right? And they're like, oh, just kidding. Here's a Genesis. And I'm like, you. Oh, you.
How dare you let me down and then bring me right back up.
Right. But the last thing on this one is that if you haven't played it, it is available for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 online stores.
Oh, cool. I should download that. I bet it's cheap.
Well, it's in the Sega Mega Packs that they...
Right. I actually have... I wonder if I don't have that, because I have one of the Sega Mega Pack Games.
Oh, yeah?
I can't remember which ones are on it, though. That one might be on there.
Yeah, you should
I'm going to have to look. Yeah.
That's a good one. But
I'll have to look. Platformer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Super Mario Brothers. First one.
The very first?
First one.
The Orig? Well,
yeah. Well, not
the Orig.
Not the Orig. Not the arcade version,
right.
But the Nintendo Entertainment System.
NES for sure.
Yes. They came out in
NES.
1985, which is 3 years before we were born.
Right.
And I actually still have it and a Nintendo.
Yeah. You also have that soccer game that's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I almost put that on there, but anyway.
It's a great game.
Yeah.
Quintessential platformer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it invented it.
Yeah.
On console anyway.
Sure.
If you don't know what Super Mario Brothers is, you shouldn't be listening to us.
You should just click out. Please don't. We need your views.
Yeah. Well, they're not views, they're listens.
Depends on where you're listening.
Oh, yeah. It's true. Anyway.
Don't ever question me.
A good amount of challenge in it. I mean, it's relatively challenging kind of unforgiving.
Yeah.
Yes. These games were so unforgiving because you didn't have that little continue thing in them.
Yep.
How some of the other ones, did work.
Or save points.
Or save points. There was no such thing as save points. I didn't really want a beer, but I'll drink it.
We're going to drink on the show.
That's fine. Let's do it.
This is we're over 21 barely.
But barely by a few years. Anyway, there's also when you think about it.
Thanks.
When you think about it and what was.
Do you want to say something for the show? Okay.
When you think about it for what was probably stored on that cartridge, I can't imagine how much data is stored on that cartridge because there was a lot of levels. Don't need it.
There's not that much actually for the technology even if you open a cartridge, today, like if you went back and cracked open that cartridge, it'd just be a tiny chip in there.
Really?
It's like, and you can't see it because I'm about to hold up my hands, but it's kind of like, I don't know, about that big.
Huh.
So it's not terrible, but like for the technology that existed back then, you could put all of that probably on a, micro SD and have
and you have
crap tons of room left.
Yeah. Like in today's standards, you mean? Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like that with any of these games because they didn't have any internal memory. I think the first one that I ever remember that had internal memory was 64.
No, The Legend of Zelda had a save point or save system.
Really?
Yeah.
The one for Nintendo?
Mm-hmm.
So what did it do? Just burn some data onto the cartridge for you, or?
I believe so.
Huh. That's interesting.
I think it was all clever programming.
Okay.
To where when you set up a save point, when you loaded it back, it was like the password system because those things had passwords. It was
is true.
Basically putting in a giant password for you and then there it is with all your data.
The soccer game that you mentioned earlier, you can get back to whatever game you're on if you write down the little code to get to it.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. This game, Super Mario Brothers, did not have that.
Did not have that. Yeah.
It did have warp zones, so you could warp to close to the world that you
just
were
played
on.
till you died.
Yeah, basically.
And you couldn't go backwards.
No. Yeah,
that was frustrating.
Really, it's crazy to think about. I mean, that spawned all this stuff because you would think there'd be so many people who got pissed off at the game if they're like, you know what, I'm just not playing a game anymore.
Yeah,
I'm done with this.
Whatever.
Yeah. But anyway, it's one of those things that's just instantly recognizable.
Yeah. Because
of the music and the sound effects alone. I mean, you can hear Mario jump into a coin and you're like, hey, that's Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Or you hear the mushroom when he eats one of the growing mushroom things.
Yep.
And you're like, hey.
Mushroom.
Yeah, the growing mushroom things, whatever they're called.
Term. It's
whatever they're called.
It's in the instruction booklet.
I've never seen an instruction booklet for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah.
Did you ever read those as a kid?
It's another thing that's instantly recognizable. No, I never did read those.
Oh, I did.
I mean, why would I?
I did.
Why?
Because you'd buy it at the store and then on the ride home.
I'm
so excited. I'm like, I've got to read everything.
Yeah. And I kind of still do that, but your instruction booklet now in like a 360 game, there isn't one.
There isn't one. And you know why? Because of annoying tutorials that pop up.
Yep. And then the actual game manual is usually stored on the disc.
Yeah, that too. I mean, could you imagine Mario in today's world to where you get to that first block and it just says press A to jump?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so, because I'm not.
I mean, there's 2 buttons on this controller that are red.
I think I'll try them both.
Yeah, let me see which one does it. Yeah,
it's getting to the point of ridiculousness.
It really is.
I can understand if there's something that's not inherently obvious in your game to where you'll put up a tutorial, but if you tell me I can climb this wall and it's the only thing in front of me and the only way to go is ascend, I mean, it's useless. And
I'm probably going to think that right away.
Yeah. And especially on the rated M for mature, because then you can assume that you're catering to a mature audience who's over 18. I know it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that
But
way.
as a game developer, you should assume.
Yeah, you probably should.
But I guess you never build a game with the rating in mind.
That's true.
Unless you're making Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
Anyway, I have a lot to say about
That's
video
okay.
games.
That's fine. So another thing about Super Mario Brothers is just spawned the first really great franchise in gaming.
Oh, yeah.
In my
the
opinion.
platformer.
Yep. All of the NES sequels are great.
Mm-hmm.
So you have,
Especially
it was just
3.
the 1, 2, and 3, right? For it?
Yeah. Well,
And then it
Secret
went on to the
levels.
Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a secret level one. That's right.
I'm not sure if that ever came out in America.
I played it.
Because, it came out on the Super Nintendo as part of the All-Star Pack.
Oh, that is where I played it. That's right.
But I believe that was, and quote me, or correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, somebody, but I believe that was the actual sequel to Mario 2, or to Mario.
Interesting.
And they didn't release it here because they thought that Americans weren't very good at games.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. Well, back then.
Back then, it's probably right. But Super Mario 2 is just the weirdest game ever, but it's still so much fun.
You know why that's weird?
Why?
Because it's not a Mario game. It is in the fact that it's licensed by Nintendo now, but it was a different game in Japan, and they rehashed it as a Mario game using Mario sprites and colors and
so they
all that.
basically just put a paper over everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
God, I'll put a link in the description.
Okay.
Future Kai, put that in there.
Okay. It was a fun game though.
Yeah, but that's why it was so vastly different from
it is very different. You can't even jump on top of enemies in that one. You have to throw a stupid radish at them.
Yeah.
Which,
Radish.
whatever, but it's fun. I never owned a Super Nintendo, so I can't really say anything about the ones that were made for that console.
Yeah.
But I know they were still successful because those were the first ones that had Yoshi in them.
Super Mario World, I believe, still holds the record for most sold Mario game.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Yeah, I would have thought Super Mario 64 would be that.
That one's up there, but I think it's that one and then Galaxy under it.
Oh.
I think.
I never played Galaxy. I had it for the Wii, but I tried playing it and I just didn't like it. I don't know why. I'm not much of a platformer guy, I guess, but
I am.
Super Mario 64, I mentioned that just a second ago. That was like the start of the 3D, like the new era of them. And it really started it off with a bang, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
It was so much fun.
And everything, you can tell everything's an experiment in that game.
And it was an experiment gone right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because everything about it was so much fun.
And then a lot of imitators came out, or I shouldn't say imitators, but they're using Mario 64's template, I should say.
Well, have you ever noticed how, they came out with 3D Sonic games and they weren't nearly as good as the 3D Mario games.
The first 2 Sonic Adventures were fun.
Those were for the Dreamcast, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But then everything after that was kind of...
Do you guys remember Dreamcast?
Yeah. I do. That was some of my fondest memories because there
were so many good games for that thing.
Yeah. My friend down in Texas had one. And I pretty much lived at his house for an entire summer. And that's basically what we did.
Just play Dreamcast all the time.
Yeah, we played Dreamcast. He had a lot of other stuff, but yeah.
So the only other thing I have to say about Mario just in general is that the newest one, the Super Mario 3D ones, 3D Land that came out for the 3DS. If you have a 3DS, buy it and play it because it was so much fun. Even Lady Ice beat that game.
Oh, really?
She loved it. Yes. And there was a point there where I didn't even get to play my 3DS because she stole it from me all the time. She's flipping me off, but that's fine. But yeah, great game. And you really should play it.
They're addicting.
Yep.
And they're just fun. Easy to understand.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
So my number 4, you know what? I'm going to throw it out and save it for another day and just vamp or just ad-lib.
Okay.
Because I was going to go with Crash Bandicoot.
Okay.
But I think I'm going to go with Wild Arms instead.
I've never played that game.
It was an RPG for the PlayStation. And I put it on this list now because it was my very first RPG that I ever played, which is mind blowing because, I had a Genesis. They didn't really have RPGs on there.
There was a few and
there was a few.
Weren't they really good? Wasn't there one that was made by Blizzard?
No, maybe.
Yeah. I'm pretty positive because they make references to those characters in some of their newer stuff.
I know there was the Lost Vikings.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
No, that was a platformer.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. And then there's I don't know what Rock and Roll Racing.
Rock and Roll Racing, which was a fun game.
Yeah. But yeah, if I had a Super Nintendo, I probably would have got more into RPGs.
Probably, yeah.
I think the biggest RPG for the Genesis was Phantasy Star, which I never played.
Speaking of Super Nintendo RPGs, Super Mario RPG, fun game.
Please come back. Yeah. Please make a sequel.
Yeah.
Its spiritual successor, Paper Mario, was really fun.
I never played that one.
But it's just not the same.
Yeah. Anyway,
keep going. Wild Arms. So I didn't look up the release date, obviously, because I'm ad-libbing, or who it was developed by, but I remember this just being what sparked my my interest in RPGs altogether and ultimately led me to Final Fantasy VII. Wild Arms was a game where your character, or one of your characters, there's 3 of them, has control of what's called ARMS, ancient relic machines, I believe is what the acronym is.
Okay.
It's a gun in a medieval world, but apparently it's an evil technology that people kind of shun. So he's an outsider. He meets up with a master swordsman and some lady. She might be a princess. I don't know. And they go off on this grand adventure. And really that's what RPGs are all about, or were back then. Everybody rags on them, especially what they call JRPGs, Japanese RPGs, for having turn-based battle systems.
You know what? I kind of like turn-based battles. They're fun.
Where you just, you wait for them to attack and then you attack. But to me, it wasn't really about the battle system. It was about like the adventure, basically you're living in a fictional world. You're reading a book, and getting to interact with it.
Yeah. You're playing a role.
Yeah.
Which is role-playing game, RPG.
Yeah. It was insanely fun. They did release a remaster of it for the PlayStation 2, I believe, with updated graphics and stuff like that.
Did you play it?
Not for the PlayStation 2, no. But I spent so many hours on the first one, and just it was great. Blew my mind. And really, it's just all about RPGs in general, I guess, for this number 4. So if you have a favorite RPG, please drop it down. If you have a favorite RPG that's not Final Fantasy, because that's quintessential, which I believe is on your list.
I have one of them. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's all I got to say about number 4.
Cool. So my number 4 would be Sonic and Knuckles for the Genesis. It actually came with the Genesis. I don't have much about this game.
Okay.
Truthfully. But it came with the Genesis that my brother and I got for Christmas one year.
I had that game as well.
Yeah. And it was just the coolest game because you could plug one of the other Sonic cartridges into the game, and then you could play that Sonic game as Knuckles.
As Knuckles, yeah.
Which is just awesome, in my opinion. I mean, that's technology right there. That's thinking.
That's
for back in the 90s.
I don't even know how they did
No,
that.
I don't get it.
And I should really look that up.
Sonic and Knuckles itself was even a really fun game.
I think that was the first one where Sonic got quote unquote like powers. Like where you could jump.
He could do something. I can't remember.
You could jump and then hit the jump again and a little flash.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Flash attack.
Yep. And then when you're Knuckles, you can jump and glide.
Right. Yep. Stick to walls.
And then
if you're Sonic and you had like a shield on you and you jump and hit jump again, it would do something special. Like the flame one would.
Yep. Yeah. It was a fun game.
Yeah. It was very innovative.
The best one to plug into this game, in my opinion, was Sonic 2.
Yep.
He was even giving me the 2 signal because it was just such a fun game by itself. And then to be able to play it as Knuckles made it even more fun. Yeah. Because there's so many things that you can climb and do that, I mean, there's a lot of hidden stuff. It's like they almost had this in mind when they made Sonic 2.
Well, the thing is, if you were playing Sonic 2 and you had a second controller, with a second player, he controls Tails, and he can pick up Sonic and do a little fly. So I think a lot of that was still in there, and then Knuckles could just get to it, on his own.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, cool. It
was actually also the first game, maybe it wasn't the first game that I ever did this in, but I think it's the first game I ever cheated in.
Oh.
To get Super Sonic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super Saiyan?
But I also, Super Saiyan, basically. But I also did it in Sonic 2 as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so weird because you had to like go into this weird menu and hold select and then you put like these numbers in and then
from the music options. Yeah. I remember that.
So
I did that
weird things how they did stuff back then. I mean,
weird coding and stuff.
But yeah, that's basically all I have about that game. It was so much fun. I played it so much.
Yeah. And then Sega died.
Yeah.
They didn't, their consoles died.
Such a shame.
They're still a game developer.
Yeah.
They can't seem to get another Sonic game right.
Nope. They really can't. After those Genesis ones, it basically died.
Yeah.
Like you said, the adventure ones for Dreamcast were pretty fun.
They were good.
And I thought they were pretty fun too. It's just, I don't know.
Sonic Knight.
When I think of
Shadow
Sonic,
the Hedgehog.
Yeah. When I think of Sonic, I just think of a platformer. And when it's a 3D, it's not really a platformer in my opinion anymore.
I think the problem is his speed.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be ultra fast, but how do you got to do that and have such tight controls that it's basically Twitch gaming.
Kind of, yeah.
Which would be fun, but they don't do that because every time you start going and run forward, there's something there to stop your momentum. And that's not really
Have you ever thought about how ridiculous these characters are?
Yeah.
You have a blue hedgehog that's super fast.
A Horchherg.
Okay, that makes no sense. Then you have a red echidna with knuckles on its gloves that can glide, and that's also really fast. An echidna is a weird animal in its own right.
They have 4 penises.
Yeah, which is weird. Like I said. There's a lot of weird going on.
Yeah.
And then there's a fox, which, okay, a fox, cool. That's not that weird of an animal.
Fox.
Yeah, but he has 2 tails that can turn into a helicopter.
That can spin around.
Yeah.
That's not even physically possible.
I mean,
it would have to wind up once and then unwind again.
Like, I get it that Mario eating a mushroom and getting bigger or eating a flower and spitting out fire is weird, but
that's what gaming was.
Yeah.
Back then, it didn't have to make sense.
That's true. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. It was
an escape from the real world.
Yeah.
Real world.
From the woo-woo.
Yeah. Words.
But see, that's the thing that did you see their latest reboot, Sonic? Sonic's reboot, Sonic.
Oh, was it for the 3DS?
No, it was for the latest systems. I forgot what it was called. Anyway, yeah, they completely kind of redid the characters. Now Knuckles is kind of the dumb archetype, dumb but strong. Yeah, Tails is the kind of engineer geeky one, and then you have Sonic and Amy, which really didn't change.
Yeah.
But apparently that whole storyline is that it's in the future, and the other Sonic is actually like the ancestor, I guess. But it didn't do very well.
Well, surprise.
Well, and part of the problem is that the developers wanted to take their time, but the producers say, we got to push a game out.
Yeah.
And so you get a half-finished game.
Of course.
But anyway, I don't know. The only thing that would save that is that they got to stop focusing so much on a storyline.
Make it mindless fun like it used to be.
The first game barely had storyline to where Dr. Robotnik is capturing animals and putting them inside metal suits. And then you just chase Robotnik and beat him up.
Yeah.
Like that's all you need.
Well, that's the same thing with Mario. The only real plot point was the fact that the princess got stolen by Bowser.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the same plot point that they've always gone with. And it's fun.
Always fun.
They should take a note.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
On to you.
On to me. Where am I at? Number 3. Number 3 is Metal Gear. It was released July 7th, 1987, so only 1 year before we were born. Its developer was Konami, and Hideo Kojima, which is kind of the father of Metal Gear. It was one of my favorite games we had for the NES. I remember a basement in New York when I lived there. I had this big, ugly chair in front of a small TV. It was a comfortable chair.
Yeah.
But it was ugly with like rivets on it. Anyway. And had a small TV, and under that TV resided my first love. And that was it.
Is this turning into a story?
Yes.
It's a story time.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. It is kind of a personal story. Nintendo Entertainment System. And it was like unlike any toy I had at the time. You have to remember, you have to go back to when you were a kid and think about toys. And then I could press buttons and the guy on the screen would go beep, bop, boop. And I don't jump and do other things. And it was cool.
Yeah.
You got to interact with it. But I remember fondly one game in particular, and that was Metal Gear. This game was not about just going left and beep, bop, booping or shooting guys or some weird but cool soccer game. It introduced for me the art of patience. If you don't know about Metal Gear, you play as a military agent named Solid Snake. And your first mission is to infiltrate, your only mission in the game, is to infiltrate, recon, and sabotage the enemy. Thus, your top priority is stealth. And this is conveyed so well by the fact that if you're seen by an enemy, an exclamation point will appear above their head, followed by that iconic sound. That bling? I don't know what it is. Cut that out. But, and then, at that point, you have the option of running off screen or shooting the enemy before more show up. So the allure is that every room is like a puzzle. You have enemies patrolling in a path, a set pattern. Some objects you can hide behind. Others you have to manipulate to get around the guys, and it just gets harder and harder. So it's like an ever-evolving puzzle that you have to go through. But personally, for me, this was the first grown-up game I felt I was playing, because my dad, when he would play these games, he actually had a notepad full of little notes about the game. Because, like, the communication in the game, the radio that you talk to your boss on, they each had different call numbers. And there was, of course, this was Nintendo, so there was no save save system for these call numbers. You just had to write them down and then dial them in manually. So he had a notepad full of that. And, like, a notepad for a game or a notepad for a toy, pretty much. I mean, that was some serious stuff.
It really is, especially from your dad.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was cool. And it was before the time of, auto-saved and menus popping up. Like, did you press A to jump? Did you walk? Did you know if you press left, your character will move?
Please look up.
Yeah.
Please look down.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, that's all I gotta say about that game. And the game is still going on.
I never played the NES one. Mm-hmm. The first time I was ever introduced to Metal Gear Solid was Metal Gear Solid, I should say. That was the one for PS1.
Yes.
And then there was actually another game that came out that followed that same one. I can't remember what it was called, but it wasn't the full Metal Gear Solid game. It was just some of the battle parts, or like some of the puzzle parts. I can't remember what it was called, but it came in a different package and everything. And that's actually the one that I played.
VR missions?
VR missions.
Okay.
Yes, that's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah. You never played Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty?
I never played really any of the games.
The biggest plot twist where you don't play a snake?
I never really played any of them other than, the VR missions. And it wasn't really for me, because at that, if I would play it now, I probably would like it. But at that time, I was more about being outside and this and that. I was so casual when it came to gaming that whatever.
Yeah, can do a serious one.
But yeah, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Cool games, cool concept for games.
Yeah, especially, like I said, in a time where all the games were kind of faster paced, platform and stuff. This was a game where you had to take your time.
Yeah.
That's a very cool concept.
Yeah.
But, the Sons of Liberty game. Did you know you don't play as Snake in that one?
No.
That was, okay. And the only reason I mentioned this because it was such a well-kept secret in none of the trailers, none of the artwork that was released at the time. And the internet was around, but it wasn't like,
it wasn't what it is now. Yeah.
So yeah, nothing was released that you play as, a guy called Raiden.
Okay.
He's this blonde hair, kind of everybody hated him because he's not Snake.
Doesn't he shoot electric stuff out of him in Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's his code. That's his code name.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And you actually play as Raiden in Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, but he's a cyborg ninja. I don't know.
Okay. That sounds weird.
I have it on my computer. I haven't played it yet. But, anyway, but yeah, that's just something worth mentioning is that they kept it so secret that you only play a Solid Snake for like the first 10 minutes of the game. So it pissed a lot of people off.
I'm sure it did.
It's still a solid game. I loved it.
I'm sure. Yeah. That's kind of the only games that Konami made back then was solid games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really. Because they actually made my next game.
Oh.
Dance Dance Revolution.
Ooh.
That is a Konami game.
Ooh. I like that game.
Dance Dance Revolution, for those of you who don't know, is a big arcade. I played it in the arcade. So we have these huge metal pads with the bars and the arrows, right, left, up, and down arrows.
I wish we had arcades.
Yeah. I wish arcades didn't die. But anyway, so this was like the most played arcade game that I ever played. And I am pretty positive that my brother and I, and probably a couple of our friends, spent so many quarters on this stupid game that we probably could have bought the actual machine and put it in our house.
The big arcade machine
the actual
for thousands
thing.
of dollars. Yeah.
I would literally have my parents take me to the mall so I could play this game.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I would say, can I go play Dance Dance Revolution? And they would know that they had to drive me all the way to Bismarck's Mall so I could play the game.
It
was serious business.
It was so addicting.
It was so much fun. And I actually competed in a tournament at the game once.
Really?
And I took third place.
Really?
Yep. And
Could you do that now?
No.
Me either.
I'm pretty proud of that achievement for when I was, way back then. Because I was going against people who are like my age now.
Yeah.
And I schooled a lot of them and it was fun. Because I was like, hi, I'm a lot younger than you. And I did this. Anyway.
That's how it goes with games.
Yeah. So it was one of those games that your parents can't even get mad at you for playing. In fact, my parents would give me money to play the game because not only is it a game, it's kind of the best of both worlds because it's a workout as well.
Yep.
I mean, especially when you're playing like on the extreme level, the most, which is what we always did.
I can't move my feet that fast now. I could back then.
I could back then, but yeah, there's just so much movement and so much going on. And even like in your head, your reaction time has to be so insane in that game.
Almost to Jedi levels.
Almost. And it just made me so skinny.
Yeah.
I was so skinny back then.
It was a good workout.
It was a great way to stay in shape.
Yeah. My friend, the same one that had the Dreamcast, Doc, he had the soft pads in the PlayStation 2.
We had those too.
Yeah, PlayStation 2 version. Oh man, the nights we would stay up and just trade off playing.
My parents would actually yell downstairs for me to stop doing it because they could hear it upstairs.
Oh yeah, of course. But I remember they had this anime store back in Texas, anime shop. It was where you could go to rent. And it was pretty much a geek store before geek was cool. Yeah. So, but he had DDR and he had the hard metal pads.
Which were awesome.
Yeah. And I remember Doc was playing and, he actually somehow, this could only happen to him, he sliced his toe on the dang thing.
I've done it once before.
Have you? Okay. Yep. Yeah. It like got caught between the metal and the little press down
and
arrow
it
thing.
Slices pretty good.
And it like took a chunk out of it. And he just laughed about it. This kid just laughs at pain.
And that's why you should always wear shoes if you're playing this stupid game.
But that's the thing is that he didn't want it to break because it wasn't his pad. It was, but yeah, it was, I don't know. It was just funny.
Yep. But you know how I said that it was a good way to stay in shape?
Yeah.
Here's a demonstration for you. My brother and I and our friend Keith and another one of our friends from way back. Yeah, from way back then. We would rollerblade or ride bike like 3 miles to this water park that also had Dance Dance Revolution.
Uphill both ways.
Always. We would play 5 or 6 games of Dance Dance Revolution. Now keep in mind
that's a lot.
The 5 or 6 games, if you don't fail, is 3 to 4 games a piece.
Oh.
So we were dancing like 20 songs.
Yeah.
Then we would swim.
Sure. Always work out.
Yep. Then we would play another game or 2. Then we would rollerblade or bike home.
Yeah. Isn't that ridiculous?
And like this was like an everyday occurrence because we had a pass to this water park. So this was like an everyday occurrence. We would do this. And we didn't even think twice about it.
I couldn't do that.
One
day.
No way. Anyway.
That's probably a problem.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I had the same thing. I didn't have the water park going on, but I would rollerblade to my friend Doc's house and it would be up one hill, actually. And it was a pretty steep hill.
Yeah.
But, go up there, play DDR, and then I'd probably spend the night there and then, rollerblade back. But yeah, again, you just don't even think about it. It's just a means of getting around.
Yeah.
But that was a fun game.
Crazy how things change.
Yeah.
But yeah, great game. Yeah. So much fun.
So my number 2 is a game called Twisted Metal.
Oh, man.
Its release date was November 5th, 1995 for the PlayStation 1. And the developer was Single Track. They made their most famous games were Twisted Metal and Jet Moto. Did you ever play that one?
I don't think I did.
It was you're racing on hover bikes.
Oh,
hover motorcycles. No. But anyway, this game, this gosh darn game.
Oh, man.
In case you were, one of the quote unquote cool kids without a gaming console in the 90s, then you don't know how awesome this game was. It was a genre all its own that combined the deathmatch style of arcade shooters with cars. Mm-hmm. As a player, you'd pick a car, things like Mr. Grimm, who would ride around on a motorcycle and shoot flaming skulls at you. Or like Sweet Tooth, the ice cream truck.
Yep. Or who was the dude that just stood in between
Axel.
Axel, yes.
Yeah. His story is actually tragic because he can't do anything else.
Really?
That's just what he does. He's a car.
Oh.
Yeah, I think in one of the iterations of the game, yeah, that's basically. I think it's like his prison or something. I don't remember.
Whatever.
There was such a tattered storyline.
Yeah, whatever. He was cool.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you'd pick one of these cars and you were dropped into an arena style level with like a few blocks of a cityscape or something like that, and you would battle other cars for supremacy. Think about everything you love about Mario Kart's battle mode. And imagine if Clive Barker in his Hellraiser days got a hold of it.
Yeah, that's basically it.
I mean, there's power-ups. Everybody has a special power-up of their own signature kind of thing. All the cars had different stats about them. Some were heavier but could take more damage. Some were lighter, couldn't take as much, but could go faster and stuff like that. But, and where did this genre go? the vehicular deathmatch.
Because it was fun.
It was.
And can you imagine what they could do on a new gen console with a game like that?
Gran Turismo with guns.
Yeah.
You know?
It really actually surprises me that
they don't.
PS4 doesn't have one in development, or even PS3. I don't even think they made one for PS3.
Yeah, no, because the original team, Single Track, they broke off, or they dissolved. And some of their development team made Twisted Metal games for the PSP.
All right.
I'm not sure.
I actually had one for that.
Yeah.
When I had a PSP.
They made a couple of them, and I'm not sure when the last one to come out was, but they should really make it for the next gen, because they would make a killing.
They would.
The last one I played was probably either Twisted Metal Black, but the last one I played in the genre that wasn't Twisted Metal was Vigilante 8.
Yep, I played that one too.
For the Dreamcast.
Which was also fun.
Yeah, it was along the same lines, had some neat ideas, and I just really wish they went.
It wasn't nearly as, like, graphic as...
No, it wasn't as dark.
Yeah,
it wasn't as dark.
Twisted Metal is very dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's like a Rob Zombie video.
Basically, yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's even better about the whole thing.
Yeah, it was rock and roll, basically. But yeah, that's a great niche for somebody to pick up.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time, I think.
I would hope so, really.
That's all
if nothing else, they should at least just release one like in an arcade version type of deal for these new gens.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be a full-on game. Just give us a few levels with a few characters.
Yeah.
And even if you have to pay for DLC to get other levels, and, you know, people will do it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Or just release a full game, charge us $60 and give us everything.
And then also charge us for DLC.
Just as long as EA isn't in charge of it, then we should be okay.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, we had to take a sip of beer.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
so my next one is, you mentioned that I would have a Final Fantasy on here.
Yes.
Final Fantasy VIII.
Yes.
First and foremost.
Yes.
I never beat this game.
Yes. Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you keep telling me that, and I keep shaking my head at you. As hard as I can.
I actually learned that they have it on Steam for $20.
They have.
So I might have to download it, like, on my laptop or something.
Yeah.
I think they have 7 and 9 on there as well.
They have 4, 7, 8. I don't think 9's on there.
Oh, no?
I think just 4, 7, 8. I don't know. We can look after this, but I know those 3 for sure.
I know 8 for sure is on there.
Yeah.
And I should really download it on my laptop, because I'm sure my laptop could run it and beat it, because I know that I could now.
Yeah.
The problem back then was that this was when I was in my casual gaming thing. You know, everybody was saying, oh, Final Fantasy games are so much fun. So I tried Final Fantasy VII.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. I got to a point where you got to the second disc, because this was in the days when we were on CDs and not DVDs. Yeah. And then I had put so much time into the game because I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah, me too.
That I was just bored with it. I didn't want to do it anymore. But, it was actually the first game that really impressed me with its 3D graphics. So I played
that opening scene.
Yep. I played a lot of games on the PS1. This was a PS1 game, by the way. And none of them truly wowed me until I saw the opening sequence of this game. I was like, they can do this in games?
I was blown away too. In fact, I dragged my dad into my room. Yeah. And I was like, look at this.
Yeah. It's like, why can't it be like this all the time? Yeah. Which it is now.
Sure.
But it was just amazing to me that it could be, there was no blocks. Yeah. There was no pixels.
Polygons.
Yeah. So like I played a lot of Final Fantasy VII, but I didn't like the fact that it was so blocky. Well, in this one, you're not so blocky. You actually look like a person running around.
You know why Final Fantasy is blocky?
Why?
Because it was supposed to be on the N64.
Oh, well, that explains a lot.
That's why it looks the way it does. And Nintendo was like, no, we're not having that. Sony's like, here.
Yeah. And Sony's like, yeah, we're going to make a ton of money. Yeah. And Nintendo still made their money, but look where they are now compared to Sony.
But what's double funny is that Sony was developing the CD drive for the Nintendo.
Oh, that's hilarious.
They pitched it to Nintendo and they said, no, we don't want to do a CD drive or anything like that. So Sony's like, you know what? We'll make our own system.
Yeah. We're going to call it the PlayStation. And it's going to sell a ton of systems.
And they picked up one of Nintendo's huge IPs, which was
Final Fantasy.
Well, it's not their IP, I guess. It's Square's, but anyway, one of their huge games. But
So, from what I played, the story was a lot of fun. The card game that you could play in it was fun.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that thing.
I forgot about it too until when I was really thinking about it today. Yeah. The characters were fun. Mm-hmm. Squall was the typical Final Fantasy male character. Yeah. And, you know, he's all broken.
Broody.
Yeah, broody and teenage. But he was a lot of fun. And his weapon was awesome.
The gun blade.
Let's be real here.
The gun blade.
So cool.
It's a revolver and a blade.
Yep. And then like when you're
revolver and a gun.
When you're in your turn-based battle, which we mentioned earlier, you could actually hit a button at just the right time and you would do extra damage by firing the gun as you were slashing them. And it was so cool to me.
That was pretty innovative.
Yeah. The other thing I really liked about this game was the magic system. And the reason behind it is
that's something people hated.
I know.
But
But the reason behind it is you never had to worry about mana. You only had to worry about how many of the spells you could do, like what you had left. So basically you would have the set amount of times that you could do this spell. Yeah. So like, let's say you cast ice or fireball or whatever. Well, then that counter goes down by 1 and you have to find a draw point to get more of that.
Or steal it from an enemy. Yeah. People were just mad because one of the crucial parts of that game was, getting all of that magic and then you could equip it to a stat. So you could use your fire spells to increase your health. And then
I didn't know that.
Yeah. As you use the fire spells, of course, you're not going to have as many, so your max health won't be as large. And people were upset because you had to grind 99 of these things if you wanted to max your stats, which you didn't need to do.
No, you don't need to do that to beat the game. That's just people.
That's people. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the other
love the Final Fantasies.
Yep. The other great thing about this game, and I even say that it's better than 7. And 7 was fun. The summons in 7 were great, but the summons in 8 were just like a whole new level.
Oh, yeah.
Because you could actually charge your summons. Did you know that?
Yeah.
You could hit a button and then you had to tap square over and over and over again.
That was almost a game in itself because you would hit square until it told you not to.
Yep. And then if you hit it again, well, it made your attack way less.
Yeah. Yep.
And I love the summons. They were a lot of fun. And the fact that you could charge them made it even better because you actually had to think during your battles.
Right. Yeah, the summons were great.
It did kind of take away from the animation a little bit, but it was still fun.
Yeah. All the Final Fantasies were just fantastic.
Who's your favorite Final Fantasy summon?
Bahamut. The dragon.
Yeah. I liked Diablos?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I liked him, and that fight in itself in Final Fantasy VIII.
Because you had to fight those things. Yeah.
I literally sat there for days trying to figure it out until I finally figured that it was wind because he was up in the air.
Sure.
That it was wind that
he was weak against?
Yep, that knocked him down. But that was great. And then I used that summon over and over and over again. It was awesome.
Yeah, because he casted the one where it just like halves people's HP. Yep. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I like those games. Nobuo Uematsu did the music.
Yeah, the music is always great.
He's a great composer. Yeah, especially mentioning him because his inspirations were American rock and roll, like Van Halen and stuff like that. And
Black Mages, baby.
Yeah, the Black Mages, the group that does rock and roll versions of his music, and he even performs with them.
It's great.
Yeah,
and they wear like ninja tunics the whole time.
Do they? I've never seen them before or seen them on video or anything, but.
So great.
Was that your number 2?
That was my number 2.
Okay, so we're on to number 1. All right, so my number 1 is, no surprise to anybody, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Released March 20th, 1997. The developers, Konami, we're giving them a lot of love. Specifically, Konami Computer Entertainment of Tokyo, which, if you don't know game developers, the big ones like Konami, they have different developing studios everywhere. They have some in the United States. They have some in Japan. But anyway, this one was responsible for Castlevania, obviously, DDR. So they made the same, developed the same, Gradius and Silent Hill. The directors were, and their Japanese names. The directors were, Toru Hagihara and Koji Igarashi. Sure.
Good enough.
Yeah. Moving on.
Sorry, Japan.
But this game, I have so much to say about it, and I'm going to try not to. But probably the greatest game of all time. You can quote me. This game was the highest ranked PS1 game on Electronic Gaming Monthly's list of 100 greatest games of all time. I think it was ranked number 4 overall or something like that. But highest rated PS1 game. And for very good reason. Yeah, you remember Castlevania from your childhood? Maybe you played the Nintendo 1 or the Super Nintendo 1. Throw it out the window because this one reinvents everything. Where you had linear level-by-level platforming, you now have an open-ended exploration. You now have an RPG element, meaning you can increase your strength by defeating enemies. There were equipable items and armor, which was probably the coolest part for me, because, you get the things, expected tropes like steel sword is stronger than iron sword, but you also had swords like the Miramasa that would heal you if you killed an enemy with blood. Blood would spray out. And anyway, or the ice brand that could freeze enemies with a special attack. Now, you never played this game, did you?
I never really played any Castlevanias because I'm not much of a platform guy.
My goodness. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a talk. This masterpiece didn't play by the rules of the time. During the 32-bit era of gaming, for the CD drives anyway, a lot of developers were experimenting with 3D. So you had games like Crash Bandicoot coming out, Croc, if you remember that one, Spyro the Dragon. Tomb Raider. But finally they had a console that could render 3D graphics smoothly. However, Castlevania threw up its middle finger and said, we'll just create a gigantic 2D game full of so many secrets, it'll make your gosh darn head spin. You play the game as Alucard, spelled A-L-U-C-R-D, which is probably code for something.
Might be.
And it is later revealed, or earlier revealed if you paid attention in Castlevania 3, that you are the son of Dracula. Dracula's castle has popped up earlier than it should have, and Alucard is there to investigate why. Also helps that he doesn't like Daddy, because he's a bad man, and Alucard has more of his human mother's sentiment in him. The game is a cornucopia of references, and some pop culture references at the time, to everything from a barrel-throwing undead ape that's homage to Donkey Kong, to Sailor Moon's moon rod weapon. There's also some references to Lord of the Rings, actually a lot of them. You can acquire Orchist. If you remember, that's a goblin cleaver held by Thorin Oakenshield in the movie The Hobbit in the book. Or Glamdring, Gandalf's weapon, his sword. And the most powerful sword in the game, arguably the cheapest, being the Chrysagram, I don't know how to pronounce it.
And
blade.
You call yourself a fan.
I know. The Chrysagram referencing the mountain range where the great eagles make their nest in Lord of the Rings. Special shout out to the developers who rebooted the series in Lords of Shadow, which I'm playing on my Let's Play, watch it please, to where the Chrysagram is Alucard's favorite sword, the rebooted Alucard. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, there were so many references in this game. A lot of them Christian references because, of course, anything holy is powerful against the undead and demons that you're fighting. There's things like 2 sub-weapons being the Holy Bible and the cross. There's also Joseph's cloak, a cloak which you can actually set the colors yourself in the menu, referencing Joseph's coat of many colors in the Bible. Christianity isn't the only thing to get a nod. Tyrfing is another sword that can be found that hails from Norse mythology. There's a Medusa head shield from Greek mythology with Perseus and Athena and all that. The sword Hrunting can be found, I hope I pronounced that right, which is the sword of Beowulf. Even more than that, the enemies have ties to monsters and godlike beings that have appeared in mythology like Beelzebub, which is the most uncomfortable enemy in that whole game.
Really?
Yeah. He's first of all, they take the Lord of Flies reference literally, because Beelzebub is usually referenced to Satan.
I remember him in Constantine.
Yeah. But, so you get there and it's like this giant, first of all, and he's all on hooks. Like there's hooks running through his skin and his mouth and all that. And he just summons flies to attack you. And you have to pretty much kill him piece by piece, first his leg, then his arms and stuff like that. It's very, very disturbing.
It sounds like it.
but awesome. There's Malachi, which is a Lovecraftian Cthulhu-looking creature, Scylla and Hippogriffs from Greek mythology, and many, many more. There's even the second most disturbing boss called the Grand Falloon, but in Japanese it's Legion from Greek.
Okay.
Legion being, of course, many things. A Grand Falloon is a term coined by Kurt Vonnegut in his book Cat's Cradle as a, quote-unquote, a large yet meaningless association of human beings. An example, a really interesting study and best example of a Grand Falloon, and this is off subject, but I thought it was interesting. Social psychologist Henry Tajfeld's experiment where he gathered people in a lab. He flipped the coin and assigned people to the coin flip. By the end of the day, people who, in those two groups, heads or tails, felt connected to each other and disconnected from the other people. Or they found them as even quote-unquote enemies, for no other reason than a coin flip. It'd be the same if you were to say all people with brown eyes must interact with other brown-eyed people. Soon the brown eyes would think themselves superior to any other eye color based on one distinguishing feature that pairs them with each other. Mm-hmm. That's a Granfalloon.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Symphony of the Night is really worth a playthrough, or in my case, 16 playthroughs, and I have counted. Because it's one of those games where you can keep going back and finding more, whether it be a wall you didn't know you could break, or an item you didn't see, or a whole boss you didn't kill before completing the game. And really, that was their motivation for this game. I forgot who it was, but somebody who worked on this game saw a bunch of Castlevania games in like garage sales and bargain bins and stuff like that because there was no replayability.
Okay.
So they created this huge game so that you can keep going back and back and finding more stuff. So love it. Love the game.
That it? Dropping mic?
Yeah, dropping mic.
All right. Okay. Dropped. All right. My last one is not really that old, but we kind of agreed that it's still nostalgic.
Sure. Yeah.
Halo Combat Evolved. That means Halo the first.
For the
Halo
Xbox,
1. Yep, for the Xbox.
Giant of a console.
Yep, which was way above its time. And I'll get into that in a second. I play this game as often as I can. And I'm really glad that I can still play it on my 360, and I still own it. I have Halo 1, 2, and 3, and I still play all of them. Yeah, Halo 1 especially. This is the first game that I ever beat for a console.
Oh, really?
I think it was the first one, and it kind of marked my getting into gaming big time. My brother and I got an Xbox for Christmas one year, and we basically sat and played the game until we beat it.
Yeah.
It
is that good.
Yep. I remember the last level, the Maw. Mm-hmm. I remember actually almost wasting half a day on that stupid level because we couldn't get it.
When you had to
jump.
Drive?
Yeah. Well, there's that. Plus you had to jump with the rocket launcher and shoot into the ventilation things.
Oh, when you're fighting. Okay.
Yeah. And that was borderline impossible.
Yeah.
And basically anything with the flood is just disgusting. And that's what that was.
The flood.
Yeah. But the main reason I loved this game, other than the fact that it's beautiful.
Right.
And that everything about it is so well thought out, within the levels, the weapons. I mean, you basically have 2 sets of weapons. Mm-hmm. You have every single kind that you could think of for Covenant and then for everything for the Marines. Well, so that in itself is cool. And then you add another enemy in there about halfway through the game in the Flood that just brings a whole new level of everything. Yeah. Because the Flood is actually fighting against the Covenant and you at the same time. And it's like, what is going on here? There's just so much going on. But the biggest reason that I loved this game, especially when it came out, was LAN parties that we had. This is what I mean by I feel like Xbox was kind of ahead of the curve. And I think a lot of it is because it was a Microsoft, thing.
Sure.
This was the coolest feature of any game that I ever played, especially back then, because we were able to have 16 of us playing at the same time. I mean,
that was awesome.
Yeah, we would have parties in which we would need to bring our TVs, and mind you, they were tube TVs, so this was not easy.
2-person jobs.
Yep, so we could play with 4 TVs and 4 Xboxes that were all linked together with Ethernet cables.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so much fun. We'd have 16 of us and we'd hate each other by the end of the night, and yet we'd still love each other and do it again. It was so much fun. We would have parties in which we would need to bring 4 tube TVs.
Right.
And mind you, these were tube TVs, so we could play with 4 TVs and 4 Xboxes.
Yes.
Which, it was just insane to me because we would be in one of my friend's basements and we would have these long Ethernet cables going between these places so you couldn't screen watch.
Right.
Because you cannot screen watch. That is cheap.
You got to be on screens with your teammates.
Yep.
And that's it.
And everybody else needs to be away from you.
I remember the screen watching days, and we don't get that because it's all online
It's all online now, yeah. But tell me if you ever played one like this. Shotgun no shield on a map made for 4 to 8 players with 16 players. Did you ever do that?
We never did 16. The most we had was 8.
Oh, okay.
There was only 2. The anime shop I was telling you about, that's where we played it because he had 2 giant TVs and 2 Xboxes.
Yeah, so we would do 16 of us.
No pistols.
Yeah, no pistols. Just shotguns. Cheap. Yeah. Which were also cheap. I mean, it was one shot kill no matter what.
Sure, yeah.
But you'd basically have to spawn and then you would die right away. And if you were lucky, there would be others in the area right when you spawn, so you could just pull your trigger and somebody would die right when you spawn. And it was just so much fun because it was like a 16-person game with however many lives you had would be done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it was just great.
Oh, it was parties.
Yep.
All
But
the time.
in my opinion, this game is what basically created the first-person shooter genre of today.
Oh, sure. With the death matches.
Yep.
And yeah.
I mean, I feel, you know, I've played Call of Duty games. I've played Battlefield games. And I feel like there's little bits and pieces of Halo in all of these.
A little bit. Battlefield was actually before.
But
on the PC.
Yeah.
When it was better.
But then again,
excuse me,
Battlefield 3 had those really giant maps, which Halo did, you know, for your big death matches that you did.
Yeah. I remember, Battlefield 2 came out on the PC. I don't remember what time. They had 64 versus 64 players.
Holy cow.
It was fun.
I'm sure it was.
Those maps were gigantic.
I bet.
But anyway.
But yeah, just Halo 1 was a great game. And like I said, it was the first one that I ever beat. Yeah. So it's definitely one of those that
holds a place in your heart.
And it always will.
Yeah. Did you ever beat the other ones or just the first one?
I think I've beaten all of them except for Halo 4 because I never even had it.
Did you beat Reach?
Yeah.
That one was great.
I did. That was great.
That one didn't get enough attention.
No, it really didn't. I think a lot of it was because you didn't play as Master Chief and people didn't like that.
Whatever. I kind of like the departure they did because it was, you played as part of a squad of Spartans instead of just one. They were actually, different versions of Spartans to where Master Chief was taken as a child and trained up. These Spartans were kind of, less expensive in the fact that they were already soldiers and they just went through genetic modifications and stuff like that to become Spartans because that suit takes a lot of, training to use the Mjolnir armor.
I've heard that, Halo: The Fall of Reach, the book, is amazing.
Oh yeah. I read that. That was our top 5 nostalgic games number 1. If you have some nostalgic games, please drop them in the comments on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, just drop them in the comments below. Also, share this episode in any way you can on all the social sites. Don't forget to subscribe, like the page, like the Facebook page, like the Spreaker page. You can also find us on Twitter at North by Nowhere. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook/North by Nowhere. Pretty much if you type in North by Nowhere, we're there.
Hopefully.
Somewhere. Also listen to us on iTunes. Give us a like, give us a review. That'll put us further up the charts and people will see these episodes and be able to search for them and all that good stuff.
That'd be great.
Thanks for listening and we will see you next time. The developers.
Sorry. Forgot that you're recording. Go for it.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Oh.
You're getting married soon.